Let's talk NFL on Prime Sports Network with Marc Lawrence at PlaybookSports.com. Of course, you could also check Marc's new YouTube channel at Playbook Experts, and Ryan Dunleavy of the New York Post, who's having a hell of a season covering both New York teams. Marc, I see you enough. Ryan, good to see you.
Good to see you guys.
Yeah, Marc and I will be doing the college football report a little bit later on. We combine both shows normally, but today we decided to split them up so Ryan could come in and we could take a look at the de facto midseason. I don't know when that really is anymore, but this is as good a time as any. A lot of teams out of bye this week. 6, I think. Is that the most you can have in a bye, Ryan? 6 or 8 possible? I think it's 6.
I don't know.
I think it's 6. I don't think you can go over 6.
Guys. I don't think we've ever seen 8.
Yeah,
it's 6 teams, right?
Yeah. All right. So storyline. If you have to pick one, Ryan, storyline of the first half of the season.
I can't pick one. I'll give you 2.
Okay.
This is a little New York centric, but I would say it's the return of the New York teams. Jets and Giants were 22-59 apiece over the last 5 years, tied for the worst record in the NFL, both in the same stadium. And now they're a combined, Jets are 5-3, Giants are 6-2. So the return of, if the season ended today, they'd both be in the playoffs. So the return of New York football, and then the demise of the great quarterback. Seeing Tampa with Brady, seeing the Packers with Rodgers with losing records, Russell Wilson in Denver with a losing record. These guys, Matt Ryan getting benched. These guys who are Super Bowl winners, MVPs, and future Hall of Famers, all being benched or struggling or out of the playoffs is, to me, as big a national storyline as anything.
Yeah, it's a bad combo, Marc. When you talk about, as Ryan said, you've got the older quarterbacks that are struggling. And, of course, you're going to have a sprinkle in of really young quarterbacks that are definitely going to struggle. But then you have even like the year 2 quarterbacks that you would expect to see some sort of improvement, and we're just not really seeing it enough. So that combination is why we're seeing points down in the NFL probably more than any other reason.
I think the real reason we're seeing points down in the National Football League, Greg, is the fact that the league realizes through their study of game film and results that they're being able to take advantage of the past defenses that are being thrown at them, and they're now able to run the football. And when they run the football, they're chewing up the clock. They're not airing it out. They're not scoring touchdowns in 2 or 3 plays. They're churning out drives. And with that, the fact that the running game is back in vogue in the National Football League, that's the main reason we're not seeing points or yards in the games this year.
And Ryan, both definitely reasons why the New York teams are having success. Now, I don't know what kind of success the Jets are going to have without Breece Hall, but for the first part of the season, both the Giants and the Jets, a lot of that success due to Breece Hall and Saquon Barkley, and of course, Daniel Jones as well. And didn't we talk about this, Ryan? How many times was I just begging for the Giant coaches to make sure that they could figure out a way to get Daniel Jones out of the pocket? Finally, they bring in an offensive coach who knows what he's doing. Whether he's going to eventually get hurt or not, that's the only way that you can best use Daniel Jones as a quarterback. And Brian Daboll has done a masterful job in making that happen.
Yeah, it's not just Daboll. It's Mike Kafka, the offensive coordinator, whose game plans look totally different every week. Yeah, obviously Jones, so Saquon accounts for the second most yards for scrimmage percentage of his team. Derrick Henry's the only one whose team is more reliant on him. Saquon has 968 yards from scrimmage. I think Daniel Jones has like 330 rushing, and then the Giants' leading receiver has 232 receiving yards.
Crazy.
So it's a very unusual team, and you mentioned New York. Both teams doing it with running. They're also both doing it with defense in very different ways. Wink Martindale looks like he's going to get a head coaching job. He's done such a great job with a blitzing, attack-minded Giants defense. And then Robert Saleh, the total opposite. I asked him about this last week.
I heard you. I said, that voice sounds familiar to me.
Yeah, he said he couldn't be more different than Wink, basically. They try to coverage you to death and don't blitz and use their deep 8-man defensive line. And you know what? Both are working.
All right, so let's talk because we're going to also go over our predictions, which we're all very proud of, the preseason predictions that we had. So we're going to kind of throw that in to our second half predictions. And I tell you what, let's start at the top with the Green Bay Packers, Mark. So the Green Bay Packers have let us all down. You and I had them winning the Super Bowl. Ryan had them losing in the Super Bowl. They did not make any trades at the deadline, which appeared to be the last gasp hope that something could be brought in to help the passing game, and it just didn't happen. So short of a receiver getting cut for whatever reason, I don't know, Brandon Cooks, I don't know, maybe somebody getting cut that nobody expects, and the Packers swooping up and picking that player up. I don't know. It's going to be real hard for the Packers to change things around in the second half.
It's going to be, you asked Ryan the question of the story of the year in the National Football League, and it being the New York teams, and I would concur. I would also say the second story would be the demise of the Bays, the Green Bay and the Tampa Bay programs, and how far they've fallen in just 1 year. And they're led by gray-bearded quarterbacks, Aaron Rodgers and his mushrooms, his family of mushrooms, and Tom Brady, America's most eligible bachelor right now as we're speaking, and all the problems he's been having. So, I think that's another story all into itself. We had both of these teams, Green Bay, Tampa Bay, picked to make it to the playoffs, and some of us even to the Super Bowl and winning the Super Bowl. So there's been a lot that's happened in and amongst these two football teams. And, if I would throw a third story out there, it might also be the L.A. Rams and how they've really, really gone backwards this football season here. But that was almost to be expected, according to the history books, because it's so very difficult for Super Bowl champions to repeat. And everything going on with that franchise right now sort of speaks to where they are right now. So put me down for the Bays as the other reason of a demise in the National Football League this year, if you will.
All right, now we're going to go through each division. And I tell you what, let's start, Ryan, with our favorite journeyman, former Jet Giant quarterback, leading Seattle Seahawks in the NFC West, who, by the way, are not getting respected one bit by the fans, the gamblers, or Vegas as a 70-1 shot to win the Super Bowl, even though they're playing really incredible football over the last few weeks. So I think I feel great for Geno, knowing as a Jet fan, knowing what he went through. I know a lot of it had to do with himself. He was a very immature player back then. But it just shows you when you if you can mature and you hang around long enough in the NFL. We've seen this before over the years, 30 years back, 40 years back. I don't know. But Washington, the Raiders used to be infamous for this, to bring these older quarterbacks in and they'd have one last shot at redemption and in the Super Bowl. Now, I'm not saying Geno Smith's going to lead the Seahawks to the Super Bowl, but it's a great story.
Yeah, you say we've seen it before. I don't know that we have. I mean, maybe with former starting quarterbacks, but we have not seen a guy who basically went 6 years between starts then enter the MVP conversation. We asked Wink Martindale about it, the Giants DC. The only guy he could come up with was Kurt Warner, basically. Totally crazy. Here's the bottom line, though. Only 2 of the 3 teams in the NFC West are making the playoffs. The Seahawks, the 49ers, and the Rams, and that's discounting the Cardinals, who are a decent team themselves. Only 2 of those teams are making it. Who are you leaving out? That's why people keep leaving out the Seahawks. To me, I'm going to put the Seahawks in. I don't think the Rams are going to make the playoffs.
Mark?
I agree with Ryan, Greg. The Rams don't have a running game, and I was really, really surprised at the trade deadline that they didn't go hard after a running back, a quality running back, Kareem Hunt in particular.
They could have made a deal with the Bears. I mean, what would the Bears have wanted for David Montgomery? His contract's up, I believe. They have Khalil Herbert. What were they, overpricing David Montgomery, or the Rams weren't interested?
Did the Rams have enough bullets to offer? I know their contract is so lopsided with the monies that they pay to the superstars and the average salaries for the rest of the football team. Maybe caps-wise, it was tough to fit those players in. I really don't know. I'm not a capologist. I have no idea.
Mystery.
But Kareem Hunt would have just been an ideal fit on that football team. But, the Browns obviously were holding out for a king's ransom for him. Didn't get it.
Reportedly, they only wanted a 4th-round pick. So
well, that was said to be the case, Ryan. But I have some people inside the Browns organization that told me that was never ever the truth. That was always was put out there. Okay.
Good stat. So, good nugget.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, and then when you watch McCaffrey go to the 49ers, that's got to pain you as a Rams fan, because he's a huge difference maker. So.
Yeah, and not just for this year. This is huge. Now, and I said this a couple of weeks ago too when it first happened, and it's not going to happen this year, of course. But how does this look going forward now when you have a backfield just like we're seeing with the Giants with Daniel Jones and Barkley? Just imagine next year you have McCaffrey and Trey Lance in the backfield. That's got to open up Trey Lance's stock right there. And that, you know what? He may not be, just like Daniel Jones. Maybe he's not a great passer, a pocket passer, but we put him in the backfield and McCaffrey, boy, I'm going to come up with all sorts of stuff this offseason if I'm Kyle Shanahan. All right, so playoffs, West, you're going to go with 2 teams. You said Ryan, you're going to go with Seattle and San Francisco?
Yeah, I'm going to go with San Francisco winning at Seattle as a wild card, and I had the Rams originally, so that's a big fat X for me.
Okay, do you agree, Ryan? Mark, do you think that the Rams are going to be knocked out?
I do, because they don't have that running game that I alluded to, and they're not going anywhere. That's the way the league has evolved this year. And you can't keep up with the Joneses if you don't have a Jones. And they're also a targeted football team. Every game they play, they're the defending Super Bowl champion. It's next to impossible to play up to the level this year that they did last year to climb that mountain. They're seeing that, and it's happening. And the league is making changes, and the Rams have not been. It sort of surprises me, being Sean McVay, a little bit innovative in the sense, but they haven't done it. And until they do, I agree with Ryan. I got to put Seattle in there out of the NFC West to be that representative. And being 2 teams from one division, I couldn't put 2 teams from the NFC North in there because I have to dismiss Green Bay right now for the moment, but we'll leave it with the West. And I'll concur with Ryan, Seattle and San Francisco.
All right. I haven't even had time. I'll make my picks when we run through this because I got to look at the other divisions. But how about the move, the non-move? And I've been doing this so long in all sorts of sports. And I know it doesn't happen very often, but when it does, it makes you realize what on earth is the coach doing. And McVay said it, I shouldn't have left Kupp in a blowout. I don't know how many times I see this happening in blowout situations. I even saw it with Jim Harbaugh on Saturday night. I was going, what are you doing running Blake Corum with 1.5 minutes left in the game and you're up 30? What is this? I don't understand how coaches think this way. It's like they think these guys aren't going to get hurt eventually by putting them in spots that they shouldn't even be in. So Rams got lucky that Kupp did not have a serious injury, but it was close. All right.
You sort of answered your own question there, Greg. The key word was Harbaugh.
Hey, now don't come on now.
I'll go soft.
I'm trying to soften you up. I was making strides last week. So,
soft is what Michigan's been all about this year, that Sharman schedule. But nonetheless,
okay.
It didn't surprise me to see that happen. He should not have happened. Believe me, I agree with you 100%. I don't know what he was thinking. Yeah. I agree with that.
Okay. South, Tampa Bay's division, and no more Sean Payton in New Orleans, and no more Drew Brees. And lo and behold, the Saints are back to being almost like the Saints. They're still good, but you're starting to see some cracks in the foundation there. And we know what Carolina is going through. And I said this at the beginning of the year, Ryan, and I know you didn't think that you thought I was off my rocker, but I thought that Atlanta was a little bit better than people were saying, and they have been. I think they've done a really nice job there in year 2, and it's going to be interesting. They might be the story of the offseason with as much money as they're going to have to spend and the decision that they're going to make at quarterback.
No, I totally agree. They're one of the surprise teams along with Seattle, along with the New York teams. I think I had them 32nd in my first power rankings. I thought they were the worst team. I saw them practice against the Jets twice. I thought they were the worst team. I think obviously they're inflated by a really bad division. I mean, that division that could be an 8-9 division winner, but can't take anything away from them. I mean, they have some decent wins. They've gotten the most out of some players like the Giants have that are not very good players, that they're maximizing their strengths. Very surprised with Atlanta.
Mark, is Atlanta going to win the NFC South?
No.
Who's going to win it?
Well, I think it's the putrid division in the National Football League this year. And I don't see a stick-out team. Right now, if the playoffs started, Atlanta would be the number 4 seed by default because they're on top of the NFC South.
So who wins it?
Tampa Bay.
Well, that's probably right now in Vegas the betting choice, even though as poorly as they're playing right now. I think it's largely because a lot of the odds makers don't see a lot in the Atlanta Falcons. They've only won the yards one football game this year. Been very, very fortuitous. Marcus Mariota has been a good point guard for this team. I don't know if he's the best quarterback in the National Football League, but he's done his job. I don't know if that means they're going to make the playoffs. I would point to New Orleans right now.
Wow.
The Saints.
New Orleans right now.
With Andy Dalton at quarterback.
Well, or we might see a rebirth of Jameis.
We could.
You know.
Yes.
But it's all about the defense, and the Saints bring the defense inside that division.
Give me Tampa Bay. I don't think they're going to the Super Bowl. I think they're just going to win a bad division.
That's what they're going to do. Somebody will win a bad division, yes.
Yeah, I think I'll take Tampa Bay. I'll ride with the 45-year-old. I don't like their offensive line. It scares me. Brady
I think the center's going to be back soon.
They don't have the tight end and the running back who catch passes that Brady's always had whenever he gets in trouble.
Yep.
It's almost like he would rather have, and I wrote this today actually, it's almost like he'd rather have Rodgers' team with Aaron Jones and Tunyon, and Rodgers would rather have Godwin and Mike Evans. That's how they fit each other.
Yeah,
they fit each other better.
Yep.
So, yeah, I'll take Tampa Bay by default.
Just Tampa Bay, Mark? Or, you're taking the Saints, right? Are you taking Tampa as a wild card?
I'm going to say Tampa Bay. I think Tampa's problems are for real.
Okay.
And I think they start at the top from the quarterback down. And I think there's enough pieces with New Orleans. Alvin Kamara being healthy and looking like he can be the player of old again. I'm not counting on Andy Dalton in a rebirth of any kind or Jameis Winston, but I like the defense of the team. And if by default somebody has to pick a team in that division here, I'm just not keen on Tampa Bay right now as we're speaking.
So we're all just going to take one team from the South.
Because we have to.
Yeah. Yeah.
Michael Thomas ever going to be a good player again or no?
Well, that's the other possibility. My goodness, if he comes out of that coma that he's been in, who knows? What can happen? But he's tremendously talented, and winning begets winning. And if they start winning a couple of football games, who knows? Maybe they're all on the same page. That team.
Okay, now let's move on to the North, and Minnesota looks like they've got this one sewn up. I think the only time that I was wondering whether or not there could be an issue there was after the bye. Was there going to be a hangover at all as far as a good hangover? No, they came out, took care of business, and move on. And I think that was especially with a rookie head coach who'd never been through a bye situation before. So that bodes well for the Vikings and Kirk Cousins. So it looks like it's the Vikings. I guess you guys would all agree. Do the Packers make the playoffs, Ryan?
No, the Packers have major problems. Major problems. I mean, Aaron Rodgers doesn't want to play the way that those players have to play. He wants to throw deep balls to receivers who are catch and run receivers. So he's being stubborn. He's blaming everybody. They've had 4 different offensive line combinations. The defense was vastly overrated before the season began. No, the Packers do not make the playoffs. They're majorly flawed.
I agree. I think Green Bay's in a world of trouble here right now, and the coach doesn't make changes. He doesn't make enough changes. Aaron Rodgers is pouting, maybe rightfully so, just given the fact that I can't believe management refuses to give him any talent
at the wide receiver position. Not going out for a wide receiver at this trade deadline was ludicrous.
Did you see the
that's what
stat,
they said.
guys? Do you see the stat recently that he had? You know how many touchdown passes Aaron Rodgers has thrown in his career to guys who were drafted in the first round?
Like one?
I can count
Zero.
I can count on one hand. Zero, huh? Yeah.
Zero.
There you
Zero career touchdown passes to first round picks.
It's a shame.
They have this philosophy. I don't know what it is all about Green Bay. They would rather feel they could draft a player and develop him rather than trade for somebody. I think they feel like they have to mold a player to be a Packer, and they don't want to step out of that shell, that realm. And picking up a wide receiver at a trade deadline was not at all what they're all about. And if I was Aaron Rodgers, I'd be really peeved as well.
Yeah.
Now, reportedly, they did offer a second-round pick to the Steelers for Claypool.
Yeah.
So they tried. The Steelers picked the Bears' second-round pick, thinking it'd be a better pick. But to me, if you're the Packers, that's where you say, okay, well, we'll give you a 7.
That's right.
Yeah, we'll give you a 7. We'll give you a 2 and a 7. A 2 and
absolutely. It could have been. They could have done a number of things. They could have said, "We'll give you a 6th-round pick in 2024." Yeah. It makes no sense, but that's how they play in Green Bay. All right. So yeah, we all have Minnesota. Let's go to the East. Oh, by the way, the one thing I did want to point out as far as the South that I forgot, last game of the regular season for these two teams are against each other. Atlanta hosting Tampa Bay. That might be for the marbles. Wouldn't that be something? All right. Now let's get back to the East, or start with the East. And
Beast?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, did you say the NFC?
How
Beast?
has that changed overnight? It's back to being the beast, the NFC Beast, with 4 teams, all 500 or better. Eagles are going to take this division, it looks like, as long as nothing major happens the way they're going. So I will start off. I think you know where I'm coming here, Ryan. I will start off with Jalen Hurts. Now, do you think that Jalen Hurts has done enough to prove that he is a legitimate starting quarterback in the NFL, even though he was not a first-round draft pick?
I don't know. The job Buddy Ryan is doing out coaching Bill Parcells and Joe Gibbs and Jimmy. Oh, sorry. It's not 1991. The standings just look like it's 1991. Sorry. Jalen Hurts. Yes, he has done enough. Yes, absolutely. Look, I'm a little wary of paying him the $45 million going rate for starting quarterbacks, but I am also somebody who believes you can always get worse at starting quarterback when you're trying to get better, and letting him go would, to me, you're just as likely to screw that up and end up with somebody worse. I think he's a back. I don't think you can look at him as, oh, he was drafted in the 2nd round anymore. You know how I feel about 2nd and 3rd round quarterbacks. Never feel they work out. Well, I'm ready to put Jalen Hurts in the Russell Wilson category as an exception to that rule. And I think, yes, he is a franchise quarterback for the Eagles.
Especially if he wins the MVP this year. I mean, that the contract balloons, it goes through the roof with that football program. You're talking about the NFC East. Just doing the math and going backwards, if we have 2 teams out of the NFC West and 1 out of the South and 1 out of the North,
here we go.
That means 3 come out of the East, okay? They have to be Philadelphia, Dallas, and the New York Giants.
Yeah. I mean, you look at it, when the Giants come after the bye, they start with Houston and Detroit at home. That would put them at 8-2. And even though
there's 5 division games remaining.
Yeah, I just, there's no way they screw that up. No way. Not the way they're rolling, not the way they've been coached. That they're in. So as long as they win those 2, even if they don't, but I think they will. As long as they go 8-2, it's over. They're a playoff team. All right, so Philly to win the division. We'll talk about how far they go. So, Mark, is it going to be Dallas and the Giants in the playoffs?
Well, they're going to make the playoffs, both of them. Are you asking me in the championship game?
No. Are they both going to make the playoffs, Dallas and the Giants?
Yes.
Okay.
I think all 3 teams from the East will. Dallas, Giants, and the Eagles.
Agree with that, Ryan?
I do. I see the Giants as the 7th seed. Yes.
All right. So at this point, that makes, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You've got all 7 teams in, Ryan. Mark, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all 7 teams in. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have one more team in that I have to put in, and I am oh yeah. So I already know I'm going to put Seattle in. So we all agree San Francisco, Seattle. I have Tampa. Ryan has Tampa. Mark has New Orleans. We all have Minnesota in the North, and we all have Philly, Dallas Giants in the East. So we really didn't go too far out of whack here. Before we move on to the AFC, Ryan, give me a team that we're just not really believing in that could do something, make a run to make the playoffs. That's it. Just sneak into the 7th seed. Well, and don't say Green Bay.
It's the Rams. I mean, it's the Rams. That's the team we're overlooking. I mean, they have tons of star power. They have a great coach. I mean, if they get it together, they're the team. I mean, they have the quarterback. He's won the Super Bowl. He got incredibly hot last year. Ramsey, Aaron Donald, Cooper Kupp, Beckham will probably be back there in December. They have the star power. It's the Rams are the team that could change everything.
All right, then let me ask this. Between Arizona, New Orleans, Chicago, and Washington, which one makes the run?
Arizona's the best of those teams, but in the hardest division. So I'd say New Orleans because that's the easiest division.
And Mark, since you already have New Orleans, between Washington, Chicago, and Arizona, I would just leave it at that. And I could throw in, I guess, Carolina. Which team makes the run?
Well, we can't choose the Rams because Ryan has them.
No, it's just that they're too easy. Taking the Rams or the Packers is too easy. So you got to give me somebody that nobody's thinking about that can make a run. Well, and Atlanta. I shouldn't have even left off Atlanta.
That could possibly be Washington.
Would you have? I'm sorry to break in there, Mark, but Ryan, would you have chosen Atlanta if I gave it to you? Atlanta over Arizona? I mean New Orleans.
No, I would pick New Orleans. I'm still not a believer in it.
Okay. Sorry about that, Mark. Go ahead.
Well, the team I think that could apple cart what we've talked about might be Washington if they, they're playing really well behind Taylor Heineke, and he keeps adding new pairs of tennis shoes for every team he beats, and he's going to be able to open up his own Foot Locker store here if he keeps going on. But I take Washington only because if the New York Giants happen to retreat and slip back, maybe Washington could fill that void. That's the only reason. If the Giants don't fulfill their destiny.
I think that's.
And I'll go ahead and take Atlanta as my surprise team, since I might as well just go with it. All right, now let's go in the AFC. Starting in the West, and we looked at the West when the season began and said, wow, look how tough this division is, and it's crazy. And is it possible? Remember there was that talk about could 4 teams make the playoffs in the AFC West? Is it possible? Well, this is the reason why this stuff never turns out in the NFL, why you can't look and predict schedules when the season begins. Here's a good example as any. It's the NFL, man. Things just weird stuff happens. Injuries, new coaches, disappointments, especially with free agency, and you don't practice enough in the offseason, and it's great. That's why we love the NFL nowadays. But Kansas City is Kansas City, and they're going to win the division. We're all going to pick them. I'd be surprised if none of us do to win this division. So, Mark, we'll start with you. How many teams make the playoffs in the West besides Kansas City?
Well, at the beginning of the season, we all pretty much had the Chargers making the playoffs. They were everybody's darling, if you will. The injury to Herbert, I think, has really, really deterred this team. But if he gets healthy, they could end up going back to where they were supposed to be. So I'm going to stick the Chargers back in the mix there in the West.
Only 2 teams?
Yes.
Okay, so you have Kansas City and the Chargers. Ryan, what about you? It's just a 2-team division now?
I had 3 in the beginning. I had Denver, Kansas City, and the Chargers, with the Chargers winning the division. I'll flip-flop them. I'll go Kansas City winning the division, the Chargers as the number 2 seed. As the number 5 seed, and second place in that division. I'm with Mark there, though. I kind of got screwed with the Herbert injury, because if you saw the Week 2 game, the Chargers were every bit as good as the Chiefs. But injuries are part of the game. They're not going to win the division, and I'll leave it at that. The team was Denver. Denver's god awful, so they're not making the playoffs.
Well, really, what it was interestingly enough, Hackett was brought in to pump up the offense with Russell Wilson, and it's the defense that's been carrying Denver. And now they trade Bradley Chubb away, which is an interesting sign right there. So, yeah, that's what they think. But let's keep in mind the Chargers are only a game back, and they get Kansas City at home. So are we giving up on the Chargers too soon?
No, I don't think so. I think you see the Chiefs don't miss Tyreek Hill as much as everybody thought they might miss Tyreek Hill. I think they have the Chargers number at, year after year. I think I'm not giving up on the Chargers. I see them as a playoff team. I see them as a team that could win in Kansas City in the playoffs. It's not just a Herbert injury. That team is banged up. Yeah. Banged up and down. And Brandon Staley's magic touch on fourth down last year, he was, according to Football Outsiders, the most aggressive fourth down coach in NFL history, and successful while doing it last year. And this year he's reverted to a little bit more conservative, and it isn't working out as well for him. So for all those, I'm not giving up on them. I'm just moving off them as the division winner.
I think you could have thrown the word lucky in there with Staley last year as well. Very fortunate in what he got away with. And he's, like you say, not so much getting away with that this particular football season here. I think between Kansas City and the Chargers, there's a mammoth gap here in the coaching abilities between Andy Reid and Staley. Andy Reid, he does everything that he's supposed to do. He makes changes in the course of the football season here. Staley sticks to his analytical playbook, and it may have worked last year, but ultimately most things return to the norm, as you know, Ryan. And I think that with a coach like that doesn't have a whole lot behind him, I think Andy Reid holds a huge edge in this division. I think Kansas City wins this division going away.
Yeah, it was that Cleveland game that really was the one that made you scratch your head for both coaches. With some of the decisions.
Yeah, look, when we get to the playoffs, it's a different story, because I don't trust Andy Reid in a playoff game at all. So could they lose that? Right. Yeah, exactly. To get there, yeah, I totally agree with you.
No matter who the head coach is of the Raiders in 2023, and I still think it's going to be Josh McDaniels, is Derek Carr the quarterback?
I don't believe so.
No matter who the coach is. No.
Okay, so if go ahead then, give me the two scenarios.
I'm looking up his contract right now. I was just waiting to rip you for picking the Raiders to go to the playoffs. When is that part of the podcast?
Yeah, it's over. I was giving him till last week's debacle. That was it. I was giving them one last chance because they had, if they would have won last week, they had Jacksonville this week. They could have been right where they needed to be, and they laid a massive egg.
Ironically, guys, in this division, you got two first-year head coaches that are both right now probably even money. One of the two might not coming back next year. That being Hackett and McDaniels. I mean, they're both having horrific years, and I think the primary reason is looking at those head coaches and their decisions and how they coach the football game.
No, so Derek Carr's dead cap next year is $5.6 million.
Oh, that's nothing.
Compared to a $34.8 million cap hit. So I would say more likely than not, regardless of who the coach is, he's not the quarterback.
Yeah. Okay. All right, let's move on to the South, and my.
So wait, how many you taking there?
Same two.
Same two.
So in the South, Tennessee, my pick for the second team in the AFC when the season began. At least I did something right. Is still hanging in there. By the way, Mark, did they finally win the stats last week?
Yes, the first game all season long.
And they did it with their quarterback out.
With Malik Willis.
Yeah.
Not with Ryan
Who
Tannehill.
didn't do anything. He just handed the ball off to Derrick Henry.
But they didn't lose the yardage.
No, they didn't. And that should tell you something. Get the ball to Derrick Henry every chance you get.
It probably bodes well for their chances. While Tennessee will most likely win this division, I think they'll also be the first division winner to be bounced in the first round of the playoffs.
Oh, okay. All right. So Mark is still not sold on Tennessee. All right, but how many teams come out of the South, Mark? Just one?
I'm going to say just one. The demise of the Colts and the way everything's coming apart here. We had the Colts, so I would have had them in as part of the package here. But I don't like what's going on. I don't think Sam Ellinger is going to take this team to the playoffs, and they're obviously not going to be reverting back to Matt Ryan. I think even if an injury occurred, Ryan, correct me if I'm wrong, because it's all about the money and his contract, that situation with Matt Ryan. I don't know if they would even go back to him as a quarterback, or would they?
The word around the league is if they need another quarterback, it'll be Nick Foles.
There you go.
So.
Why wouldn't they even give Nick Foles a shot? Very strange.
I mean, the obvious answer that no one will say is because they're kind of moving on from this season and realizing they have to look at Sam Ellinger / draft a new quarterback. Yeah, enough of the quarterback carousel in Indianapolis.
Absolutely, and we talked about that. That's the one last thing that has not been accomplished at Indianapolis in this rebuild is stop wasting your time on these veteran quarterbacks.
Let's call it what it is. They did what the Cowboys did. They built a great offensive line and wasted it. I mean, that's what the Cowboys did 10 years ago. That's what the Colts are doing now. The offensive line isn't as good as it was 3 years ago. So by the time you get the quarterback, you're not going to have the offensive line.
Yeah.
They built it right after Andrew Luck retired, and then they're going to waste it by the time the next guy's good. It was like totally mismanaged timetable.
All right, so Mark, do you agree? Ryan, do you agree? Just one team in the South?
Correct. I had the Colts winning it and the Titans as a wild card. Originally, I'll give the Titans the division and bounce the Colts.
Okay, and by the way, Trevor Lawrence, what do you think about his lack of progression at this point?
It's alarming. I mean, this wasn't just a number one pick and wasn't just a number one quarterback. He was supposed to be the Elway, Peyton Manning generational prospect. And you want to blame everything on Urban Meyer last year? I thought that was kind of a stretch to just pin it all on, nobody's going to get any better. Like, I'm sorry, that's just not how it works. And then this year with Doug Peterson, I haven't seen enough from him. No, I would sound the alarm bells on Trevor Lawrence.
In the AFC North, we thought this was going to be a really, impactful division. Even though Pittsburgh was going to be down a little, the fact is that Cleveland, even with a backup quarterback, they just squandered so many winnable games that they really should be at the worst a 500 team right now, and they're two back of that. Pittsburgh is building for the future with Pickett as well. They should. The Bengals are a Super Bowl loser. They got their win streak snapped. They lost Chase now for a few weeks. Who knows how much longer? That's a big blow. And Baltimore, who wasn't exactly playing great football, all of a sudden they're in first place. So what do you think about the North so far, Mark?
Well, I think the biggest storyline might be Cleveland's demise. It was sort of expected, obviously, without Watson, with Jacoby Brissett, but he's lost some football games for them, and he's won some football games for them. So they're sort of getting what I think they knew they were going to get from him. The question is whether or not he could hold serve until Deshaun Watson got there for the Houston Texans football game. I think they've put themselves into too much of a hole right now. They have the best running back in the National Football League in Nick Chubb, but that also makes them really a one-dimensional football team, if you will. And I'm a little bit surprised also that they didn't go out and get another wide receiver, to accompany Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper is a really terrific wide receiver. He runs great routes. He can always be counted on. He doesn't make mistakes. Another wide receiver would have helped the Cleveland Browns at least get ready for Deshaun Watson. It didn't happen. I can only see this being a two-team race here with Cincinnati and Baltimore, and I think Cleveland misses out on the playoffs again this year. And I'm from Cleveland, by the way.
Agreed completely, yeah. I think Baltimore wins the division. Cincinnati gets in the playoffs. Cleveland will be too little too late when Watson comes back. They haven't been able to float above water. Myles Garrett, I think, could be the defensive player of the year. He's playing terrific. And Pittsburgh, that prideful streak of never having a sub 500 season with Mike Tomlin as head coach is about to go up in flames. So, Kenny Pickett, I have a lot of confidence in Kenny Pickett, but he's going through the rookie struggles right now that a lot of teams do.
Sure.
Baltimore, honestly, I don't know if we're going to do Super Bowl picks. Baltimore, to me, is right in that conversation.
Oh, wow. Okay. By the way, the 3 games remaining for Cleveland before they get Deshaun Watson back: at Miami, at Buffalo, and versus Tampa Bay. So it's not going to be very easy to win 2 out of 3 before Watson comes back, and that's why things might not work out for Cleveland this year.
Cleveland had a real easy gravy beginning of the season, Greg, and when they should have taken advantage of the situation in these close call games that they didn't win. They proved to be winnable games, and going into the games, they were games that on paper they could have and should have won. So now they're going into the deeper, tougher part of their football schedule. That's going to make it really more difficult for them.
All right.
And I think my favorite trade of maybe the whole deadline, as far as not contract or whatever, as far as player and fit, is Roquan Smith to the Ravens.
Yeah, I was hoping that the Jets were going to swing a deal for Roquan Smith. So when he went to Baltimore, that was a big blow, and that's about as a perfect fit for that organization.
Kid's 25 years old. He'll be the kingpin of that defense for as long as they can keep him under contract.
I don't understand. What Chicago can't have cap issues. What the hell's wrong with Chicago?
They didn't want to sign him. He's a free agent.
Yeah, I know. Right. What the hell's wrong with them?
They want to continue to build, and
I guess they're in the long rebuilding, 5-year rebuilding plan.
If T.J. Hawkinson isn't part of the Lions' plan as a 25-year-old tight end, and Roquan Smith isn't part of the Bears' long-term plan as a 26-year-old linebacker, then you are in the long rebuild phase.
Yep.
Okay, so do you have 1 or 2 teams in, Baltimore and Cincinnati, or just Baltimore, Mark?
I have 2 teams, Baltimore and Cincinnati.
Okay, let's go to the East. And Buffalo is at least still the king of the division, so that hasn't been a surprise. Jets surprise team, as we mentioned before. Dolphins are undefeated with Tua, and the Patriots are in last place, but at 500. So what about the AFC East, Ryan? We know it's Buffalo, but do you think it's just going to be 2 teams with Miami getting the wild card?
I do think it's going to be 2 teams with the Jets getting the wild card.
I know the schedule's a lot easier in the second half, but okay.
Give me the Jets as the 7th seed, Buffalo winning the division. Look, my Tua's really impressed me a lot, actually. I like that they went out and got Chubb. I like the moves the Dolphins made. The Jets already have a tiebreaker on them right now with 1 win. Obviously, they'll play 1 more time. I like what the Jets have going. I'm around it a lot. I like what they have going. I like their defense. It's not sustainable to win with their play. They're getting a quarterback. It's just not. But I do think he'll be better over the long term, over the second half of the season. They need him to be, and I think he will be. And I do think, like I said, I don't think they're going to make a long playoff run, but I think they end up getting the 2nd seed here, the 2nd place in the division.
Mark?
I think I owe you 3 teams, Greg. Am I correct?
No.
From what we've chosen so far?
Oh, no, just 2.
I only owe you 2?
You've got the Chargers and the Bengals as your wild cards.
Okay, well then, it's been nice knowing you, Jets. I've got to go with Miami.
I mean, I have Miami too. And I'm a Jet fan.
There you go. But I've got to go with Miami's a really, really deeply talented team from all the moves they made. Tua's coming into his own right now. The defense should shore up with Nick Chubb. The wide receiver tandem they have is the best in the National Football League. I know Cincinnati's pair could be arguable, but they're not playing together right now. Miami's is destroying the opposition. My main concern about the Jets is the quarterback position here. And is Ryan with us right now?
Ryan, are you there?
I am, yeah.
Okay, here's the reason I'm going to dismiss the Jets. And I know you're on them like white on race, covering them, and you have feel for them. And you're probably most likely right than I am. But they're going to be a double-digit home underdog against Buffalo this week. In the National Football League, in the history of double-digit division home underdogs, so my database goes back to 1980. There have been 107 of them.
Wow, this is a great stat.
Only 6 of them were winning teams that were double-digit division home underdogs with winning records. Only 6. The New York Jets make it number 7, which is maybe exposing that football team, if you will. In those 6 teams that were double-digit underdogs, only 2 of them won those football games. So I guess what I'm basically saying is the Jets came out of nowhere. They played some really good football right now, but it wouldn't surprise me if regression hits them at some point in the second half of the football season. And if Miami were not in this division, they would be my default team. But I think Miami's got a little bit more going for them right now, so I'll go with the Dolphins.
Are we forgetting New England?
No.
That's the other possibility. Can New England, start to play some good football here? I don't like their situation as a quarterback position at all.
I don't either.
It's Bill Belichick, but it's not the Bill Belichick of old, and he may win a game or two by out-coaching another coach, but I don't think it's enough to get him to the playoffs.
Yeah, that game last week was one play. I mean, if they don't have that interference penalty or that roughing penalty, that's a pick 6. It's a bad pick 6, by the way, by Mac Jones. I don't know what he was thinking, where he was throwing the ball. But then they basically won the game because they just allowed the Jets to make all the mistakes. And that's how Bill Belichick wins football games, when he doesn't have a superior football team. But, you're not going to, depending on their schedule in the second half, if you play teams that just don't give the game to you, you're not going to win many of those games. All right. We have all our picks. So now before I get your Super Bowl picks, I'm going to ask you to give me a sleeper in the AFC, because you gave me a sleeper in the NFC. So Ryan, let's see, sleeper. Let's go with, I'll say, between New England, Indianapolis, Cleveland, and Denver. Who would make a run to that 7 seed?
To the 7 seed or to the playoffs?
7 seed playoffs. New England, Cleveland, Indianapolis, or Denver.
Well, there's a difference, because I'd be more likely to pick Indianapolis to win their division.
No, it's got to be a wild card.
It has to be a wild card team. New England. New England is of those teams. I think there's probably the least gap in the AFC after number 1 between 2, 3, and 4.
Even though it's a real tough division for them.
Correct.
Yeah.
Even though it's a real tough division, I just don't think the separation between 2, 3, and 4 is that great.
Okay.
So a team that won 3 or 4 in a row would end up with the upper hand in that division. That's all it's going to take is one winning streak, because it's so tight. You can see them alternating losses almost every wins and losses every week. Denver, I just can't do it. I know they have a good roster. I don't trust the head coach. There's obviously something really wrong with the quarterback. They're trading away defense. I can't do Denver, so give me New England. And I can't do Cleveland. So give me. If I could pick somebody to get in just on the strength of any way they get in, it would be Indy winning the division. If I can't, It's New England as a wild card.
Same teams, Mark.
Same teams. So even though I didn't pick the Jets, I can't use them. I got to use.
No, I didn't. It's New England.
That sleeper group.
Cleveland, Indianapolis, or Denver.
Well, that's a tough list, but I agree with Ryan. I'd say New England. If the Jets do fall back, it does open the door for possibly that third team in the AFC East, and that could be New England. I can't do Cleveland like Ryan said, knowing what's coming up. And the Denver Broncos, while their defense is good, they're just not a very good football team. So I would say New England as well.
I'll go ahead and do Indianapolis. But yeah, I see where you guys are going with New England. I just think that, Miami, leapfrogging both the Jets and the Dolphins, I don't know. I think that might be tough. So I'll take the Colts. I still believe in Frank Reich. May be able to get something done there. But yeah, New England is definitely a good pick. All right, now let's finalize our updated, if we want to make changes on our Super Bowl. So, Ryan, right now you have Chargers over what? Packers, right?
Yeah.
Okay, what's your new Super Bowl pick?
Give me Buffalo over Minnesota.
Oh, Minnesota. Wow. I like the guts of taking the Vikings in the Super Bowl with Kirk Cousins coming through in the playoffs.
Buffalo over Minnesota with my, I don't know, you can't really call him a sleeper, but my alternate pick that I gave a lot of consideration to being Baltimore.
Okay. Baltimore it is as a little mini sleeper. Mark?
Well, if I used in the championship game early in the season Buffalo over Kansas City, then we can't go back and rewrite either of those two teams. Is that correct?
Oh, you can do whatever you want.
Okay. Well, I would say that scenario in the AFC Championship game.
Yeah.
And I would say the winner of that game plays San Francisco for the Super Bowl.
Oh, so okay. So, and right now, who would you pick, Buffalo or Kansas City?
Right now, I'd have to pick Buffalo.
Okay.
As does 90% of America, but things could change. They're a much better defensive football team, and when you get that deep into the playoffs, defense has a lot to do with moving forward.
Yeah, San Francisco, that's a good one, definitely. I'll probably, the thing is with the Eagles, oh boy, that'd be something else. I'll stick with the Eagles, so we'll see. Buffalo over the Eagles in the Super Bowl. The last thing is the futures, the Super Bowl futures.
So we all ditched Green Bay. So since no one else is going to do this, I'll take it for you guys. That's called wearing egg on your face. This isn't actually an egg. This is green and yellow kinetic sand in honor of the Packers. Right here.
Oh, did that work?
Yeah.
All right.
Nice.
It would look better if it would have stuck, but you might have to wet that a little. Super Bowl futures. No, I don't think that's working. Super Bowl futures. So I'm just going to throw you teams that are over 25-1. Give me the team that you'd go with. Tampa Bay. Well, basically, go ahead and give me a team that you think would. I don't have to go through them all, but for instance, you got the Chargers 30-1. You have, like I said, Seattle 70-1. Patriots are 70-1. Packers are 50-1. Bengals are 30-1. Dolphins 30-1. So give me a team like that. Can't take Minnesota or Baltimore or Dallas or any of the favorites. Who would you go with? Who would you put you're in Vegas, you're going to slip a Super Bowl future on a sleeper. Who would it be?
Wait, what is Dallas?
They're too low. They're 15-1.
And Baltimore's what?
18, just like Minnesota. So it's got to be no Dallas, Baltimore, Minnesota, or no top 4 teams. So it's got to be someone else. And you could pick 2, Mark, while Ryan is debating.
What are the Chargers? What are the Chargers?
Yeah, Chargers are 30-1.
Give me the Chargers for sure.
Yeah, I think the Chargers are a good play at 30-1.
Yeah. Definitely. The Chargers, and then what are the 49ers?
No, they're too good. They're 13-1.
13-1 at 4-4. That's amazing.
Yeah, and the Seattle 70-1.
What are the Rams?
They're 40-1. So, Mark?
I would have liked it better, Greg, if you would have posed the question by what team that doesn't have a winning record would you buy for a future? And that I think would have been.
Oh, you could do that. What team with a winning
San
record would you?
Francisco.
Who? The Rams?
San Francisco.
Oh, without a winning record, that's not bad. Yeah, but that would be that wouldn't work. So did you give me a team, Mark?
Miami Dolphins.
30-1. All right.
Talked about them at the beginning of the season, and they're living up to their billing. So no sense in jumping off that merry-go-round right now.
Greg, what are the Jets and Giants?
The Giants are 80-1, and the Jets are 150-1. No belief in either team, especially the New York Jets. You know, I honestly don't think Cleveland is a bad idea if they win like their first game out of the bye or one of those 2 road games, and they know Watson's coming back. They may not be bad. That might not slip too much. Maybe you could still get them at 80-1 or something. I would keep an eye on the Browns in case they somehow split out of the bye on those road games. Have you given up completely on the Browns, Mark? Even if they get off to a good start after the bye?
Not completely, because there's enough talent on the football team to turn things around.
Yeah.
But I just don't feel they took advantage of the situation they had at the beginning of the season, and I don't know why they're going to kick it in gear here right now. I really don't.
And does anybody know, Mark, do you have any idea if you found out the secret reason how the Jacksonville Jaguars blew out the LA Chargers earlier this year?
Well, was that the game that Herbert
No, he played.
But was he healthy?
It was the first game after he got hurt.
There you go.
Yeah, but they gave up like 40 points.
Well, I guess you take the field without your with your leader being wounded.
I mean, that's a big. You just don't have your starting quarterback, no matter how bad he is. You get blown out by the Jacksonville Jags. I mean, that's a big switch. Wow. I understand losing, but
Chargers lose inexplicable games.
They do.
Back to Marty. That's just the way of the franchise.
They do. And you guys, and I know Mark doesn't, and I guess you don't believe in the Titans at 50-1, Mark, Ryan.
No, I don't believe it. As a Super Bowl team, no. Yeah. I see them as exactly what they usually are: the team that makes the playoffs, wins their division, and bows out early in the playoffs.
1-0, yes.
Guys, I appreciate it. Mark, we're going to be talking college football a little bit later, as we do every week. Don't forget, please, to subscribe to this channel. That is the lifeblood of what we're doing here. This way I can get Ryan on, even though Ryan does it, whenever I ask him, but you get the idea. And I'll probably have to ask Ryan to come back at some point, maybe in the next couple of weeks, to talk Rutgers football. But as you can see, Ryan, I've completely stayed away from that with you this season.
I honestly haven't watched the game.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you. They're unwatchable.
Saturday's usually my day off, and I play dad, so I haven't even watched the games.
Yeah, their offense is unwatchable. So. But yes, we'll talk to Ryan, I'm sure, a few more times before the end of the regular season, maybe, but definitely during the playoffs like last year. We'll commission Ryan throughout playoff time, especially if the Giants and Jets somehow do make the playoffs. I know he's going to be swamped if that happens, but we'll figure out a way. So, Ryan, appreciate you coming back and giving us some time.
Good seeing you guys.
Mark, I'll talk to you a little bit later on.
My pleasure, as always, Ryan. Great nuggets. I like the gooey stuff on the forehead.
Nice try.
Jets and Giants.
Sounds good, guys. Thanks.